All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel for another edition of You Asked, and I am going to answer. Today we're talking about light levels. I made a video recently about a backlight technique that I stole from Paul Cameron, and this was one of the comments to that video talking about ambient levels. And this is a tricky issue that if you aren't familiar with the benefits of working with larger lights and more level, might be a little bit alien to you. So let's get into the comment or the questions, right? I think this is a great way to introduce backlight quickly and avoid nose shadow issues. However, wouldn't this cause issues with the ambient level as it's pointing directly into the ceiling, which, depending on the location, may cause unwanted bounce or fill? So the technique is, instead of backlighting from the side of the image and like trying to scrape along here, you backlight from the ground below the person. And what that does is the shoulder blocks the backlight from hitting the person's nose, so they have a little bit more flexibility. Doesn't work in all scenarios, but it's quick and it's easy and it's super simple to get looking halfway decent if you are short on time. So that was the point behind that video. And the question is, well, when you're pointing the light at the ceiling or upwards, aren't you going to hit the ceiling and then that will create ambient fill? Now, my response to this would be, this is why if I am shooting interiors, I am never shooting at 1600 ISO wide open as a base. Why? Because a little, like 1 foot candle of light, a tiny little bit of bounce off of a wall or off of a table or something is now going to start to pollute my image. What I want as a cinematographer is what? I want control, maximum control. I am a psychopath. I think that if I have control, I can make the best image possible. If something doesn't look good, you know what the first thought in my head is? The first thought in my head is, if I just had control of all of the elements, I could make it how I want. That's the belief. Okay, so if something isn't working, it's like, oh, I just don't have enough control. Well, how do I ensure more control in lighting? I need more level. Why? Because if I have more level, there's more separation between the ambient and what I control, between what I don't control and what I do control. I want the key to be pushing, 1,000 foot candles rather than pushing 10 foot candles. Why? Because then it starts to bounce around and the ratios get compressed and all of a sudden you're bleeding into my nice, beautiful contrast that I've created. I want max level. Why do Hollywood films of the 90s, the early 2000s, they have that like slickness to them? It's because they're pumping in so much level. The level from outside, if you're looking at it like an interior scene or something, you're shooting with 18Ks, you have so much more control that you can separate the shadows from the highlights so much better. And you can specify where that separation happens because nothing is bleeding into something else. Imagine it's like the difference between oil painting and watercolors. It's like you don't want the watercolors sort of mushing all around into the areas that you're going for. With the oil paints, it's like, oh, I want a stroke here and I want a stroke there. And how do you get those strokes? How do you get those individual strokes? Is you light with the most amount of level that you can. I mean, also the flip side is if you light with a lot of level, way easier to take away than to add, right? Nothing worse than a director or the client and the agency coming back and saying like, oh, it's just a little bit too dark, or sorry, it's a little bit too dark. Like we need to bump it up a little bit. And you're like, oh, we're maxed out on lights. We got no ND in front of the camera and we're at ISO 1600. It's like, oh, we don't have a quick solution. If you go another direction and you say, well, rather than shooting at 1600 ISO, what I'm going to do is I'm going to shoot at 400 ISO. I'm going to put a 0.6 in front of the camera. That's just like my base. 0.6 in front of the camera. Now, instead of shooting at 400 ISO, you're down to 2, you're down to 100 ISO. It's like, that's a pretty good base because I know if I'm shooting on the Alexa or something like that, I know I can get to 1600 and it'll be, looking very, very good in just ISO, right? Just to trick people looking at the monitors on set. I know that. That's in my back pocket. So I'd much rather have that. I'd much rather people look at the monitor and go like, what is going on? Why is it so dark? It's because I'm lighting at 400 with a 0.6 in. So now, if you want a little bit of bump, well, I can use ISO, I can use ND. I have a plethora of options at my disposal that take 2 seconds to enact. That's what I want. I want to leave myself options to the very end. So separation comes from using lots and lots of level. Now, you don't want to go crazy, but use the max. I would always say, err on the side of the max. And you're thinking to yourself, Patrick, isn't that more expensive for the production? Maybe, but I'm in the business of making nice images. I will tell you, this is the pattern to make nice images and to have complete control. It's better than, rolling the dice that maybe we get lucky with the ambient in the room, or maybe we get lucky with the ambient outside or the sunlight or whatever it is. It's like, I don't want to rely on luck. I'm the insurance policy. I want to make sure it looks halfway decent. This is how we do it. If you don't like that look, okay. But at least I told you before we started that, yes, it's going to be slightly more expensive because we need bigger lights. And maybe we need some more crew to make that light a possibility on the day to get set up. But that's the reality of it. Okay. So you want separation. If you're shooting at, T1.4 and ISO 1600 and you're using this backlight technique, you're going to need such a small amount of level that it could add unwanted ambient. It could add unwanted fill. So don't do that. Use much, much bigger levels and really pull apart the light because it ends up looking significantly better. Okay, now if you like this kind of content, if you want to see more in-depth cinematography breakdowns from past jobs that I have shot, walking through the prep process, walking through the shoot day, and then through to the final color correction, all of that stuff, the easiest place to do it is over on Patreon. There's hundreds of hours of videos and podcasts in the back catalog. I release a new video each and every week to help you get better at cinematography. That's the idea, at least. And if you get better, hopefully you get more jobs. If you get more jobs, guess what? That's nice. Right? That's what we're going for. Okay. You can find the link in the description below. It's the only way that I can do it. And I appreciate all of the support that I get through Patreon. Okay. That's going to do it for this week. Many thanks. We'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.